Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining for today's College and the High School webinar. Our topic today is advising and guidance, and we're fortunate to have two very fantastic guest speakers with us who bring a deep knowledge and experience in the community college and four-year systems. We'll introduce them to you in just a moment, but before we dive in, a quick housekeeping note. This meeting is being recorded. I know most of us are Zoom pros at this point, but if you could keep yourselves muted unless we're in a Q&A section, that would be much appreciated. We'll have a few designated times throughout the presentation where you can feel free to unmute and ask a question or give a thought. So feel free to do that, or you can go ahead and drop questions in or comments in the chat anytime. Use whatever method works best for you. So we're going to go ahead and get started. As I mentioned, we've got a great team here today. Jennifer, would you like to kick off the introductions?
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone. Jennifer Nunez at Eastern Washington University, Director of Dual and Concurrent Enrollment and Summer Session.
Anne?
Yeah, I'm Anne Melinda. I'm the Director of K-12 Partnerships and Recruitment over at South Puget Sound Community College in Olympia, Washington. And so I oversee our outreach efforts, our assessment center, and then our dual credit program enrollments for Running Start and college and the high school.
Thank you. Julie will be joining us in a little bit, but as all of you probably know, Julie Garver is the Director of Policy and Academic Affairs for the Council of Presidents. I am Kristen Jowie, Program Administrator for Student Services in K through 12 Alignment for SBCTC. And Stephanie, go ahead and give a little wave, Stephanie. Stephanie is a Policy Associate at the State Board. You may be wondering why I'm facilitating today and Stephanie is staying silent. Unfortunately, Stephanie's lost her voice. And while I'm sure she could somehow facilitate just fine because that's how amazing she really is. She and I are going to be switching roles today. So I'll be doing the facilitation and Stephanie will be monitoring the chat. Thanks, Stephanie. So let's go ahead and take a look at our agenda. We've completed the welcome, introductions, and housekeeping. We're going to jump into college and the high school guidance and advising with Jennifer and Anne. We'll have some Q&A, breakout sessions with the group here, and then we'll finish up with a large group discussion, takeaways, and next steps. So thank you again, Anne and Jennifer, for taking the time to be here with us today. And I'll go ahead and turn it on over to Anne.
Yeah, thanks, Kristen. So when we were thinking about, what to talk about, some of us have been working with college and high school students for quite some time. Some are brand new, just getting programs started. And so there's a lot that goes into working with these students in particular and making sure that they're getting access to the things that they, by the program design have access to, and then making sure that there's meaningful connection and things within that. And so something that we wanted to start with is just kind of that reminder that, college and the high school is not Running Start, which we know, like in our minds, but sometimes it's really easy to try to lump those two groups together and try to kind of treat them in the same way. We know that students, have lots of opportunity. They have opportunity to enroll in college and high school through multiple institutions. So they may be working with, a variety of different colleges within the same academic year from year to year, because college and the high school definitely has a much larger footprint in terms of just kind of how we are connected within the districts that we work within. Running Start, generally those students are enrolled in a single institution. It's not often that we have them splitting their FTE between multiple colleges. And of course, there's restrictions on that. Like they still have only the same FTE available to them. So most of them just do like a one-to-one, like I'm enrolled in this institution. That's kind of where I stay throughout my journey within Running Start. So really different just in even the initial setup and the exposure that students are going to have within college and the high school. Also, our college and high school course offerings are limited. A lot of times that's due to the teaching staff that we have available to us at the high schools that qualify to teach these different classes. And then, of course, we're limited in the articulations and making sure that things just kind of set up and run together, and that we have the course at the college to be able to offer at the high school. Whereas our Running Start students, they have the entire catalog that they get to enroll in throughout our institution. So Running Start have a lot more options as far as courses they can enroll in compared to college and the high school. But college and the high school students may be interacting with a lot more institutions than Running Start students are. So definitely some differences between those two. Kristen, if you want to go to the next slide. And so then when we're thinking about connecting with our college and our high school students, how do we do that when we kind of have these different variables that we're working through? And so something that we wanted to kind of reflect on is the fact that, even though college and the high school students stay at the high school, we do want to keep in mind that they do have access to all of the resources and support that the college offers. And of course, in this case, it may be multiple colleges that they're enrolled in and have access to. And so how we advise and work with college and the high school students then is very different from Running Start students. And then of course our just matriculated college students. And so we want to think in terms of, what's important is what can we deliver in large group settings. This is not the traditional like one-to-one advising that we tend to do with our regular college students or like with our Running Start students. And so we may not have the opportunity to actually physically be there with those students that are attached to our college, taking credit through us. And what are ways that we can, do some things either with interactivity online rather than relying on those traditional one-to-one advising sessions. Next slide. And so really what this is kind of like a blending of the support and resources that we have for our students. And there's lots of different ways that can be done. And of course, the scale matters. If you are a college that is working just with high schools within your general service district, that's going to look very different than a college that is working with high schools, maybe, across multiple districts or across the entire state. For high schools, same, right? High schools that are working maybe just with one or two colleges for college and the high school may have a different experience than those that are working with 3 or 4, or more. Colleges. And so there's some different things that, we've seen done or that we've done ourselves in working in these programs. Things like it's how do we support the instructor and the students that are in the class that are taking these college credits. And so like creating informational flyers about the articulated credits. So you are sitting in this biology 100 class at the high school, you're earning college credit for it. What can you do with that credit? How can that be used in either furthering your academics at the community college or at going on to a 4-year institution, taking it into the world of work? How does it connect to work-based learning and things like that, different ways that credit can be used? Because that's information that generally the colleges have. Like we know our courses, we know how students have the opportunity to use them. And so just creating a flyer that basically can be either pushed out to the students through, digital means in the families or handed out within the classroom kind of at the start of term or during information sessions, just so they understand like, here's what this credit can do for you. It's real college credit, and this is how you can continue to use it moving forward. Being able to provide in-person or virtual information sessions. In some cases, it's the college coming in and providing an information session. Sometimes it's collaborative and it's an opportunity. If you have, again, like if a high school has multiple colleges that you're articulated with, you may be able to coordinate the different college representatives to come in and kind of present together to talk about this is how we do things that are a little bit different as far as admissions, registration, and all that. And then here's just the core of the college and the high school program and why we support it and think it's important to be able to do that. And so that can be done, of course, in person or virtual. There's different ways to do that. It could also be collaboration with a college representative and one of the high school instructors who are teaching the course and talking about the experience of having the college class happening in the high school setting, and using students who are currently enrolled within the program as well to talk about their experience, earning that credit. Even really cool if you can have like someone who's just graduated high school and has moved on into whatever it is their next step, to be able to come back and talk about how they're, continuing to use that. It's helping bring some concrete application to the credit, because I think for a lot of our college and the high school students, sometimes they really don't understand what it is that they're doing in this classroom and why it's a great opportunity, and that it's real college credit they are earning within it. Other things that have come up are things like creating a toolkit for the high school instructors, something that you can host either on like your college website or wherever you have information for the high school instructors that you work with, that provides them additional information about college supports, resources that students can access in person or online. Again, our instructors are our closest ally when it comes to working with these students. They're in the classroom every single day with the students. And so they have a great opportunity to talk about these things with the students, but they need the resource from the college to know what to promote and how to talk about it, because we are the ones that have the expertise within those areas. Creating videos that students can watch to learn more about using like college degree planning tools. So if I'm really interested in working on a degree, how do I know where my credit is going and how it's being applied? How can I look at the different degree options that a college offers within that and things? So just ways to, again, kind of disseminate information in a broad way, because it's not necessarily going to be a one-to-one kind of connection. And then providing that just-in-time information. A high school semester, as we know, of course, is longer than a traditional college quarter. So there's this extra time and there's this opportunity within that time that they are spending in the classroom to be able to get that information flow going, just like, hey, in the next few weeks, this is going to happen. In another couple weeks, this is what's going on at the college. The Writing Center is offering these great workshops. If you want to join, here's how you can get connected to those if they're in like a college and high school English class and things. So ways to kind of blend and collaborate to make sure that students know that they have support and they have opportunity to connect. I actually had one of the high school counselors that we work with, they reached out to me because they were like, hey, I've got this student and they're sitting in this college and the high school class. It's an English class. And they were just asking about resources and like, can they come to the college? And I'm like, yes, absolutely. They can come to the college. I would love for them to come over and get in with our Writing Center. Here's some information. And so sending them links and ways to help that student get connected. So if they could come in person, great. If they needed to do it online, no problem. They offer online tutoring as well. The student had kind of, used the resources available to them at the high school, but they just still were feeling like, I'm just not quite getting some of these things that I need to understand to be successful in this class. So it was just a good reminder for me. It's like, oh yeah, even on top of the high school teachers that we're working with who are teaching these courses, we need to make sure that our high school counseling staff as well understands the ability and connection that these students have, and so that everybody can kind of help support the student. And then also, if, again, depending on scale and how many different schools you're working with, being able to provide in-person or online sessions at the beginning of the term to help students through the admissions and registration process. Kind of just two things. One, again, it helps reinforce this is a college class and you are intentionally signing up for college credit and to go through and do this work as a college student. It makes a difference when they're hearing it from somebody who works for the college versus just maybe hearing it from their instructor within the high school. And then second, it really helps make sure that truly like all the students who want the opportunity are getting in and getting signed up so that you can track effectively on the back end, making sure that, yep, I'm seeing everybody who said that they wanted to sign up for this opportunity. We've done this. We pretty much work just within our own district for our college and the high school program. But we offered this for the first time last year, going in person to the high schools and just being on site as a resource. And so I just opened it up to all of the classroom instructors who worked we had basically 2 high schools we went to each day for like a week. And that's all my outreach crew and navigators did, was go into these high school classrooms. And we just did a really short, hey, this is what this credit is. Here's why we think you might want to be invested in it. Here's the opportunities that you have. And then we took them through our registration form, and then we took the students that we needed to through the admissions application, just took basically the class period. And it was just open. I asked the instructors before we came in, please let me know if you're interested in having somebody from the college come into your classroom. Some of our veteran instructors were like, nope, I'm good. I've got it. No problem. Really, for our brand new instructors, they were like, oh my gosh, yes, thank you so much. I really don't feel like I understand how to walk students through this process. And so it was just a really good support for the instructors, and then also, of course, to help the students get registered and things. So lots of different ways to kind of do that support. And like I said, it really is a blending of resource and support for the students, and then also for the instructors as well. And then I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer from here.
Awesome, thank you, Anne. So transfer student versus a transfer credit. And so we'll define it and also share why this is important and how we'll want to assist our students that have taken this college and high school credit as they notify higher ed institute of which of the two they identify themselves as. So a transfer credit, a transfer student, sorry. A transfer student in the state of Washington is an individual who has previously attended another college or university and subsequently enrolls at a different post-secondary institution within the state to continue their academic studies. A transfer credit refers to an academic credit awarded for coursework of learning experiences completed outside the receiving institute. This may include credits earned in dual enrollment, course completed at another accredited college or university, credit for prior learning, industry recognized credentials, or military training and education. It is advisable for college and high school students and encouraged for college and high school students to identify college and high school courses as transfer credits. And why this is important is because it ensures a student then is eligible for scholarship and is recognized at an institute as what would be considered and recognized as a first time in college experience, FTIC student. And so I know in my experience through Office of Admissions, we often see students unfortunately identified because of the number of credits they've earned either through both Running Start and or college and high school. And now with this being, available as free to them, they're going to earn a lot of credits. And so a lot of them accidentally do identify as a transfer student because they've earned a large number of credits. So the biggest advice is making sure that we assist students in identifying themselves as transfer credits. Transferability, perfect transition. The transferability in regards to our college and high school students, credits are transferable to any Washington Public Higher Education Institute in accordance with the state statute and Washington Public colleges and universities awarded undergraduate college credits for college and high school credits and appropriate applicable to student degree requirements. We publish courses, equivalencies, and institutional policies regarding the awarding of these credits on our website and as well in our OSPI website. What was amazing for me as one of the institutes that participated in the audit was a recent state audit revealed that 95% of the dual credit courses were accepted when students submitted their transcript. And so the key things is when students submitted their transcripts. And so it is highly important to encourage students to request and submit all institutional transcripts when applying to colleges. Of course, with the exception of the credits earned at the institute they are planning to attend. And this is important for multiple reasons. Students often get confused as to which credits are earned at what institutes. So if your district or high school is working with multiple institutions, it would be helpful and advisable to inform your students so that they could reach out to the different institutes and request those transcripts. So while Anne and I were excited to talk about all the things we've talked to you already, and there's many individuals and colleagues in this Zoom that could also probably add to the information and discussion that we'll talk about later. We really had to narrow down and focus on benefits, opportunities, and things to think about. And so we narrowed down to these main topics, while there's many more that we can definitely talk about offline. And so I'd like to start off with benefits. Some of the benefits that we identified early on were early exposure to college. And so we think of students gaining valuable experience with college coursework while studying in college. We understand and we recognize it is not feasible or adaptable for everybody to exit their campus. And so this is our opportunity to be able to train your high school instructors to be able to teach the same rigor and courses at our high school, at your high school, that of our courses that are offered on our campus. It reduces the cost to your students for the same college education. So courses are often at free or reduced cost. You know, I'm not sure if there's public schools, as we know, but it also reduces the financial burden to be able to be exposed to post-secondary education. And so we work with a lot of schools to be able to adopt the curriculum that you're already teaching, to be able to teach the same textbooks. And so students are not having to necessarily work outside of the work that they're already doing. We have accelerated programs towards degrees. And so now we hear a lot of talks about pathways. We have the Washington 45 discussions. There's a lot of conversations around different districts, again, to what Anne spoke around with what's accessible and what instructors are available in your district to teach the curriculum that we're offering. And so there's great opportunities and benefits within that. As far as opportunities, Anne spoke greatly in depth into a lot of them. We have mass communication outreach. We utilize board communication strategies to increase awareness and participation among students. And so I know one of the things we tend to do at Eastern is we're able to send end of year completion certificates to inform and remind students that don't forget you've earned these credits and here's your next steps on how you could request transcripts. Many different institutes do different kinds of mass communications with their students. It could be through snail mail, as we call it, or it could be electronic. Accessible print and digital materials. We provide informational resources that can be distributed electronically or printed by high school partners. And so this is where it's our partnership, our collaboration. While we can have it available, perhaps in different languages, we're relying on our working partnership with our instructors to make sure that that information is distributed and available to the students in the classroom. We have class resources for instructors. So we equip our high school instructors with tools and guidance to help students connect with college campuses and support services. Anne spoke about our writer centers, right? We have math labs. We have virtual and in person, depending on your proximity to your campuses. You may be able to perhaps bring your students for a campus visit to see those resources in person, or you might need to access them virtually and online. Either resources are available to you. Variables, again, for different institutes. So I would look into that. Campus visits and information sessions offer in-person opportunities, like I discussed, opportunities for students to learn about college expectations, resources, and pathways. And so while it is a partnership, you also can hear from the actual institutes directly themselves. And so I know there's research for those English classes where we host and could come and do an actual use of our library resources, get exposed to a research opportunity of requesting something that's more tailored to the need of your students. So there is opportunities on local campuses to be able to tailor it to what the needs of your students are. There's professional development for educators. So we provide trainings for instructors and school administrators on academic policies, credit matriculation, and student advising. And so our goal is not to have everybody be seasoned advisor, because that's always changing and ongoing, but we want to make sure that we're at least giving you the information to make decisions on if we're offering a certain number of classes. Is it advisable for students to take all of those classes, and what impact does that have? So key consideration, what does the impact of financial aid have with the college credits earned in high school? Do they count towards federal and state financial aid limits? And so this is something that I would encourage you to become aware of as you offer more college and high school credits and offer more college and high school credits with different institutions. Is there advising limitations? As we mentioned, is there one-on-one advising for college and high school students? I don't believe it's always visible as we're continue to grow. So there is some limitations, but it doesn't mean we can't work together and strategize some ideas and resources and some of the things that Anne spoke about earlier. Academic performance and standing. What does that mean, and how does that impact students as they matriculate into their institution that they're going to be attending? So college and the high school courses affect student college GPA and academic record. And so I know for Eastern, any college and the high school course that GPA that they earn can impact how they matriculate and start their freshman journey with us. And so it is important to be informed of those information, and so that we can make sure that we're passing on that message onto your students as well.
All right, we're going to go ahead and take some time for Q&A. Thank you, Anne and Jennifer, for your portion of the presentation. Does anybody have any questions? And I'm just going to stop the screen share for a little bit so that I can see the chat as well. Feel free to unmute if that feels best for you, or we can take a look at the chat. And Jennifer, you were so thorough. Oh, we do have a question. Claire asked, can you talk more about the financial aid clock? How does participation in college and the high school affect students' financial aid later on?
Yeah, so this is I don't work for financial aid, but the one thing I'll say is that there is a financial aid through the federal aid. There is a financial aid clock of as far as a number of credits that students could take. And so this is strategized so that students could be more strategic in their majors and minors as they identify them. And so these credits are counted towards those number of clock hours, basically. And so often enough, the credits that students take in college and the high school, when they transfer into their institute, then it's taken away from that financial aid. And so there is less opportunities, and feel free to join in. There is less opportunities depending on the number of credits that student transfers in with to necessarily explore on certain number or certain majors. And so, for example, I could only speak for Eastern's behalf again. I know our accounting major is already guaranteed, for example, a 5-year major. And so if students come in with a certain number of credits or a math that's not directly into that major, it'll require them to realign into that field. And so it could impact them where they basically run out of financial aid and have to utilize other financial resources to complete their degree.
And there's more information. I don't know, Kristen or Stephanie, if you want to link to the FAQ that we have for college and the high school and stuff.
Oh,
Yeah.
Stephanie just
oh
did
yeah,
that.
you
Yep.
did. Stephanie, see, you read my mind. But anyway, so basically, like specifically page 15 of that document, question 55, is about how the credits earned through the program impact financial aid availability. And like Jennifer said, us on this call here, we are not the financial aid offices for institutions. It is really important, like mostly for students and their families to connect with the financial aid offices and have some conversations around that. I will say, generally speaking, you know, the points that Jennifer made, of course, absolutely. But generally, for any dual credit student, right, part of the conversation that we need to have with them, and I'm going to channel my inner Julie Garver at the moment, is that, you know, students should be taking credit just for the sake of gaining credit. Like, this is not, dual credit programs are not meant to be a collection of all the shiny little credits, you know, across. We want students to really be purposeful. And part of that is because of some of these impacts that can happen later on. If a student just amasses a ton of credit, but they really don't know what it is that they want to do, or the credit doesn't kind of centralize itself into a way that the student can purposely put that into their pathway, you know, moving into further education, then they're going to get stuck in this place where, yes, I may have 45 credits, college credits, but effectively I'm still kind of starting from like quarter two, because of all those 45 credits, there's only like 15 of those that are actually going to go into the major that I'm identifying, or the pathway that I've identified. And so we just want to be careful. Again, like it's a great opportunity for students to earn credit, and especially because, like we've talked about, it is at the high school. When you talk about access and equity in student enrollment, college and the high school is probably the program that we have it doing the best, because the students don't have to go anywhere. They don't have materials that they have to purchase on their own. They are right there in the college classroom already, with transportation provided, lunch provided. All these supports are already in place for them. So it makes it a lot easier for them to just be like, oh, I'm just going to enroll in all these classes. But we really do want it to be purposeful, because we want it to connect to what it is that they want to do next. We want it to not have negative impact on their potential, you know, financial aid moving forward and things. So I think it's just really important to keep in mind, again, that it's the responsibility of all of us to make sure, when we're talking with dual credit students and families, that they understand the goal is not to get the most credit. Like that, you're not winning if you get the most credit. The goal is to try to identify ways that this program can support you in whatever pathway you think at the moment, right, at 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, that you want to do, and still give the flexibility that if you change your mind, that's okay. And here's how we can help redirect. I think that's why a lot of our college and the high school programs focus on, like Jennifer said, with the Washington 45. That's a core group of credit that, you know, it's going to fit in the gen ed somewhere within any institution you go to within the state. So let's try to keep options open for you, recognizing you may not know exactly what it is that you want to do at this point, but also try to, again, that's the backbone of relying on college resource. Like, that's what we do with students, is try to help them figure that out. That's what the high school and beyond plan at the high school is working on, is trying to connect a student and help them at least identify a starting point of something that they think they want to do long term. So that took a soapbox turn, but but yeah, just know that there is resources in the FAQ.
Thank you. What is more common, one college and high school credit over a high school year, or one per semester?
I can only
Jennifer.
speak on my institute. I think it varies. It really just depends on the start and end term of when you're wanting to teach the course. I think the subject matter also is another variable of that. But I will say that we have just as much all year long courses. So we really accommodate to what the need of how you want to teach the course at the high school.
Yeah, it also makes a difference on what you have available to offer. So, like in some cases, if you try to do something in a semester, which right aligns better with just kind of the timeline of college, and having, you know, quicker deadlines come through for the content and things. So I know, like for us, we prefer semester, and just because with our quarter system, that aligns better when we're talking about registration dates and timelines and things. But if there's not something that can be offered then in second semester that complements it, that is sometimes where, we might need to do a year-long articulation, because otherwise these students are sitting then in second semester for what sort of thing. So it definitely has to be purposeful in the planning. But I know we prefer the semester long when we can make that work and make it make sense for the curriculum.
Thank you. Stephanie put in a link to a PDF for Melissa's question, but in case Jennifer or Ann have anything to add, how do you advise high school teachers in accommodating 504s, IEP students in a college and high school class?
So per our accreditation, we actually have that outline on our syllabi. And so our institutes, your high school instructor would work with our institute for that accommodation. If your high school isn't able to provide that, then we would be able to through our institution.
Yeah, and I think important to remember too, right, with accommodations, it's accommodation for the college class. And so those can look very different from what is in like a full IEP 504 plan. And so it's not just applying the IEP 504, it's consulting with the college access services office to talk about in this course at the college, what are the accommodations that would be made for students within it. So there's some slight like nuances within how we support students, but like Jennifer said, absolutely, we all need to support, and that is part of the work that like our access services group would do with our high school instructors for students that it pertains to.
Perfect. Thank you. A question came up in the chat, and this might be something that folks, not just our presenters, might have opinions or thoughts on. So feel free to weigh in if you have something to contribute in that way. Does anyone add components to high school syllabi for college and the high school courses to increase understanding of what the college or what the course is and how it can affect their educational journey moving forward?
Yeah, that's what we do with our info sheets. So we have an info sheet for every class that we have articulated with our high schools. And the front basically just says, college and the high school, it tells them how they qualify for the credit, and then it explains what the credit is, any prereqs on that, and then essentially how they can continue to use that. So we do it as a separate, it's not in the syllabi that the instructors are handing out necessarily, but it is something that they could incorporate into that, or they can use it as a standalone. But yeah, I'm curious if others are doing things for this integration.
And I think for us, it's a combination of an online resource that we inform them about within our orientation. And so one of the things, again, I'm referring back as the state does require us to follow NASAP standards. And so we do outline a lot of this within our orientation that students are required to participate when they're onboarding onto a class. And so it is outlined on there as well. But again, it doesn't mean that other institutes are doing things differently. So to Anne's point, anybody can also share what they're doing.
Anyone have anything to add to that question? Okay, well, if you think of something, feel free to respond in the chat. Next question. Our college and high school courses are currently offered through 3 different universities. That, coupled with running start options and sometimes enrichment through another local university, has made it tricky for seniors to request transcripts. They have a request through multiple colleges when applying to colleges. Is there anything in the works to streamline college and high school credits onto one transcript?
Yeah, Kristen, I don't know if you can speak to, I don't think there's anything in the works, but yes, I think that is one of the biggest pain points for this program, is the fact that, yeah, these students, we tell them up front, you're going to have to order transcripts, but a lot of times that doesn't sink in, and absolutely, they could have to order maybe 4 or 5 different transcripts to kind of get those all sent. And the tricky part, and I think what is hard for like parents to understand sometimes, is that the high school transcript, yes, is all inclusive. It has all of the courses that that student has taken from Running Start, from college and the high school, from CTE dual credit. The problem and the reason why we can't just use the high school transcript for, the purposes of bringing the credit is because, well, a few reasons, but the main one is that for CTE dual credit and college and the high school in particular, it's listed as dual credit whether or not the student actually earned credit for that course. And so the biggest reason why we have to get the college transcript sent is so that we can see that the student actually earned the college credit for it. And that is how, we bring that in and into our colleges for the degree programs and things. But it is really frustrating. My oldest is a junior this year, and he has CTE dual credit from 2 different institutions. He's also doing part-time Running Start. So we're up to like 3 different colleges. And I know, right, in the work that I do, yep, we got to get these ordered and get it all lined up because he's going to be a senior next year. He's going to be applying to, colleges and things. But it was amazing, even sitting in the role that I sit in, trying to navigate and figure out for each of the different schools, okay, what do we have to do and what needs to be submitted? And it is different across the board. So I think it would be an interesting conversation between, especially the community colleges in particular, to see if there's ways that maybe we can streamline some of that for students. And because it's CTE dual credit and college and the high school both that we run into this with multiple articulations across multiple colleges.
I just want to add that at the state level, I'm currently at the meeting, there's a effort around digitizing high school transcripts, which may be a modality and a way to do this in a different way versus all the paper. And that is on the radar. The work needs to focus on first kind of getting a foundation with, accurate and in-demand high school transcripts, but that is definitely on the pennant list, so to speak, for rounds about this. So it's a common problem. It's on people's minds, but really appreciate you bringing it up here as well. But letting you know that there might be some work underway that could help with that.
Stephanie can thumbs up, thumbs down me on this one, but we know that there's lots of pain points in kind of document sharing and capturing all of this information. And so we appreciate you continuing to bring this up in places like this so we can keep it on the list. As you all probably can imagine, the list is very long, so we're working through it as much as we can. And just continue to bring it up to us so we know that it's still an issue that you want us to be tackling. So thank you for sharing. All right. And are you able to share any information about the differences in teacher requirements for each course, even within the same campus? Hard to navigate.
Yeah, I can start. I'll just say that every institution is going to be different. I know for Eastern, so again, I'm going to reference NASEP again. So our standard is we do comply with the same qualifications for our undergraduate is the same qualification for our college and high school instructors. While there is the requirements, then there's what are the required ones and what are the equivalent qualifications. And so that does differ from department to department. And so that's why you're going to see that each unit has them different. It's not necessarily something that we set a standard for. And so, for example, you'll see it just by opening because we have our qualifications available. You'll see that some of our English classes, for example, could be taught by graduate students, where our natural science classes, you have to have either a specific master's in that content to teach it. And so that just aligns with our undergraduate teaching.
Yeah, and same, that's something we struggle with as well, as it can be different from department to department, kind of what it looks like. It's a little more standardized, I think, at the community college level than maybe at the 4-year level sort of thing, but it definitely is, yeah, it's something. So I know like at SPSCC, something that our dean who oversees this program has been working on is really so we have like our student facing pages that have, all the information for students and things. We're really taking a critical look and trying to bring more like relevant content to like the instructor pages that we have for our instructors who are teaching at the high school, and trying just to provide, in addition to resource and all of that, just better navigation in ways that somebody who's interested in teaching in college and the high school would be able to kind of like take looks, do an initial look. Do I think I qualify? And if so, then great, fill out the application and kind of keep moving from there. We also require that we don't have instructors reach out directly. They have to go through whoever at their building level is kind of overseeing the college and the high school program. Because we've had some eager high school teachers who were like, yeah, I totally want to do this, didn't clear it through anyone in their building and was like putting in the application. We're like, yeah, let's keep moving forward, and then reach out, of course. And it was like, oh, wait, no, you weren't expecting this to be articulated yet. And so we kind of had to back up the train on that. So we always have it, the the instructor who's wanting to teach, of course, needs to have support within their building to be able to make that articulation happen. So
And
we love the enthusiasm.
And Jennifer spoke to the Eastern, but across the public four-year institutions, each of the folks who offer college and the high school on their websites have a process for that teachers can go to figure out how they can become credentialed. And also they include what those requirements are. And COP currently is working with them to try and put this into a single spot on our website, so you can see this across. But generally, there are, depending on some specifics to courses, it requires a master's or a master's in some type of content. So that's really kind of the beginning thing. There are a few exceptions, and that's, as Jennifer says, those are made at the institutional level. But in terms of most of the requirements, that's the kind of the level, because of the NACEP standards and the equivalency for being taught is similar to. And that's talking for academic, right? I think there's a different conversation when college and the high school is for professional technical, because there are different terminalities and degrees or requirements to teach welding and diesel engine mechanics that, aren't necessarily in the same taxonomy as like associates or bachelor's degree and stuff like that. And so, but yeah, our institutions are really trying to encourage folks to look at those things and those processes and reach out.
Thank you. We have a few more comments in the chat, but I wanted to draw attention to Tim McLean from OSBI. Thank you, Tim, for being at today's presentation. He said that we at OSBI are strongly recommending the college acronym be included in the course title, or the college be added to the school's attended section of the transcript. We are working on updating CEDARS and transcript guidance in addition to what we put out through Bulletin 6724. He also provided a link to that bulletin, so check that out if you are interested. And it looks like that might be all of the questions we've got. We do have some commentary going on in the chat, so feel free to check on that. I'm going to go ahead and open up the PowerPoint again. So thank you, Anne and Jennifer, again, for providing your valuable expertise in that area. I'm so grateful to you. And we're going to go ahead and jump into breakout rooms. We're switching gears. We'll have 4 rooms total based on how many folks we've got onto this call right now, and assignments will be totally random. So think of it as a chance to meet somebody new or hear about a different perspective you might not have heard about before. I think we'll have about 15-ish minutes for breakout sessions. When I close the breakout sessions, it'll tell you that the rooms will close in 60 seconds. Feel free to stay for that full 60 seconds and close out your conversations. And then for guiding prompts, here are a few prompts to guide your conversation. So what's something you heard for the first time that might have surprised you, or something that you've heard before but still surprises you? What are some tools you'd appreciate having or having created for your work? And how are staff from high schools and colleges you work with already collaborating around registration, curriculum support, or student support? Feel free to explore any and all of these ideas or just focus on one or two, depending what sparks the most conversation in your rooms. So I'm going to go ahead and open those rooms up now, and we'll see you back in about 15 minutes. Welcome back, everybody. Folks are popping back in after breakout sessions. If you could do me a favor and mute yourself, just to make that easy peasy. And we will get started in just a moment as folks are rejoining. All right, looks like everybody has loaded back in, so that's great. Technology is so wonderful, isn't it? Sometimes. I hope you all had a good conversation in your breakout group, and it's always helpful to hear how others are thinking about this work and what's happening across different contexts. Um, and I know that the breakout sessions are something that everybody really enjoys about these kinds of sessions, so we also appreciate them. I'd like to open it up for a few minutes to, if anybody has takeaways that you'd like to share from your group discussion. Maybe you came up with a tool you'd love to see developed or a question that came up. Please feel free to unmute and jump in or drop your thoughts in the chat. No pressure to share, of course. As a fellow introvert, I understand, but we also appreciate hearing from you.
So I could just kick out something that came up in our group breakout. Like one of the first things was kind of talking about going back to that financial aid piece and just ways to help support, because a lot of times the individuals who are going out and doing like presentations or making these connections with students, especially within like advising and things, aren't financial aid experts. And yet we know that this is important information. And so Jeannie, Willard, and Julie were kind of talking back and forth about, maybe there's a way to develop some like general kind of like either guidelines or things to be aware of, that when you see certain patterns that students are doing within dual credit programs, it's like, oh, you know what? You might want to connect more with financial aid individuals because of like the sequence of classes that you are taking might be considered major related courses. And so then if you're not going into that major, that could cause some differences with your financial aid package and things like that. So just something that, again, it can't be super specific because we all know each individual student situation can come out a little bit differently in that financial aid process, but just some general things that the practitioners who are not associated with the financial aid offices could offer up or just kind of watch for in working with students and parents. So that was part. And Jeannie or Julie, feel free to jump in on that. But I thought that was a great idea of something that could be delivered.
Yeah, I like that idea. Thanks for sharing, Anne.
Just building off what Anne said. Just building off what Anne said, so we talked to some of our K through 12 partners in there, and this will be great for the steering committee. There's some really innovative work happening at our district. So there are ways for us to showcase that so that peers can share with peers about work around they're doing to help processes that might be overly complicated or confusing. I think the other conversation, this is just taken at the end, is how do we come together and provide some information and stuff for parents and families who often, I think, sometimes maybe leaders in misperception, great intentions, but unclear. And those can be challenges both for our high school counselors and our admissions officers. So how can we work together to create some messaging for parents in order to let them know that their students will be fine, but also that help with anxiety and those types of things and map those things out, because it's a lot of confusing information. So it was really great to hear from our K through 12 partners who are doing amazing work and thinking outside the box, and just really appreciate that opportunity.
Thanks for sharing, Julie. Anyone else? Sounds like you all had some very engaging conversations going on in the breakout rooms. they might have been conversations that you need some time to think about and process, and that's okay too. But I'll give it a few more moments just in case anybody wants to jump in and provide some information.
My name's Tom Denwalden. I work with the Bellevue School District. And just a curiosity I have is like, what are our next steps? I mean, the conversation, I agree, was very productive, to especially help me understand the perspective from our, not necessarily our college partners, but college partners across the state, and just kind of figuring out like what the next steps forward are and how we can continue to like develop a partnership and relationships where we're staying focused on meeting the needs of our students, but also supporting each other on how to best advocate for moving moving forward and successfully addressing some of the challenges that we definitely know exist.
So this is Julie from the public four-year universities. We're having a lot of these conversations. So one, and I can let we are partnering with the community technical colleges and OSPI on a grant through the high school alliance. The State Board of Community Technical Colleges is the leader. I know Stephanie's voice is a little weak, so otherwise I would be like, Stephanie, present. But it's a group and it's focused really around this intentional advising and guidance. So I think, we're still working through data and stuff, and we know that there are some issues around access. But for the most part, when we look at our peer states and other states, we're really further down that road around access than some of our folks. And really what our next step is really this intentional dual credit advising and guidance. So this external grant funds is helping us have those conversations to see where we can go. Specifically to the public four-year institutions, we are really engaged around as I convene Jennifer and her colleagues about advising and guidance for our students. So we are currently working on a suite of tools to help that we'll be hopefully delivering by the fall if all goes well. That will help look at equivalencies for all dual credit programs, in part to help address some of the issues that we see around students taking multiple courses, a variety of different dual credit in the same area, which doesn't necessarily have outcomes. We're also putting out hope to put out some guidance around college and the high school and running start and how that credit transfers. And our goal is to put those things out and then hopefully also align those dual credit courses that with the minimum mission standards that we need, so students can align those up as well and check those boxes. And so that's an initial suite of tools that we're working on, and we'll roll that out. And then our goal is always to see how those tools go and what other gaps that we can fill in as well. But this is a pretty dynamic conversation around college and the high school in our sector. And so those are some of the things that we are continuing to work on, both around dual credit for us to try and help fill these gaps and give the tools that folks need. The other thing we're working on is putting in a single spot all the credential requirements across the programs for college and the high school. So you don't have to, although I think it's readily accessible on each of the websites, you'll be able to see those in the course offerings. So I'm just trying to do that and get it centralized so that our K-12 partners have one space to go to for our sector. So trying to lean into that space. If you have materials or information that you would like us to have accessible or digest in a way for you, we would love to know, because I think our institutions are really committed to leaning into that space to help kind of guide through some of this gray and nuanced area.
Thanks, Julie. I think that was very well said, and I would echo that for the community college system. We want to build these partnerships and see how we can best do this work. And we may not have all the tools and answers right now, but together with all the folks in this room, we can get farther than we are now. So, and Jennifer, Julie, I don't know if somebody might be willing to check the chat to see if we've got any other comments or questions.
Yeah, so Tim was posting office hours that he's got for K-12 partners that want to join him to, I think, right, Tim, the office hours are just an opportunity to like touch base, chat, ask questions, get some feedback from the OSPI level on things.
Yeah, I communicate them out. I don't know why the link is like too long to fit in the chat. Sorry. But we communicate the office hours out through our dual credit updates listserv. So that's begun to pick up steam. But if you're K-12 folks in particular, highly recommend that you get on that listserv. Anything that we put out of any level of importance, be it bulletins, professional development opportunities like this, um, forms, templates, they all go out through that listserv. So if you're not on it, absolutely scamper over to that link right now. Please get on it. And I would also highlight, because it does address specifically college and the high school. Through that listserv, we pushed out Bulletin 067-24, which I linked earlier. That talks about some of the college and the high school specific changes and advancements and transcripting guidance that I was referencing earlier. The other thing that's in that bulletin is the dual credit notification requirement. From House Bill 1146 that passed last year. I just want to reiterate that it is a requirement now that schools annually notify students and families of all dual credit opportunities on an annual basis. That template's available. We drafted something for you to edit and alter as an individual school or school district. So that template is available and linked from our website, and it is currently being translated. We are just waiting on the purchase request to translate that into the top 10 languages in the state. So that's a big development, and it'll be exciting because that legislation requires it to be sent out in the primary language of the family.
Thank you, Tim. And I know that some of the links that we've been posting in the chat have been a little wonky today, so don't worry. If some of them aren't working, we'll be putting them into the resource section on the email that we'll send out after this session today.
Yeah, and then just also Stephanie linked to the information that Julia was referencing about the 7 states and that the College and the High School Alliance policy work and things that'll be happening that Washington is part of. And then, yeah, some other links to, like, Maria added dual credit updates. So it's kind of the last edition of that is available. And then Stephanie also listed the listserv address. So if you're not part of the college and the high school specific listserv, that is another opportunity to, again, just kind of bounce questions off of different individuals in various states of, implementing or running a program, just like we do for some of our other groups around the state as well. So that is all there. And like Kristen said, I'm sure we'll all be included in the email. The emails are always, like, so comprehensive after these that you guys send out. They're fabulous.
Thank you. And thanks for being the Kristen in this case. You're doing a great job. Tim, I see that you have your hand raised. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, because this is the perfect opportunity, I would also mention that we have additional guidance in the works. I'm not going to put a timeline on it. Things are what they are right now with the end of session. But one thing that's been coming up really often around college and the high school, again, for my K-12 audience, is the question of credit conversion. There has been on the books for ages. I went back to 2012 and I was looking at rules written as far back as 2012 about the 5-quarter, 3-semester credit hour at the college level being transcribed as a 1.0 credit at the high school level. When it comes to college and the high school, this is critically important. We use it, I think, very religiously for Running Start. It has not been applied with as much fidelity for college and the high school. So I'm going to drop that RCW and WAC. There's an RCW and a WAC on it in the chat so that you can reference it, and stay tuned for more information, because what it is essentially saying is that for most college and the high school courses, you should be offering 1 credit. And if it's delivered in a semester, that's a 1 credit for the semester. And it could be a 0.5 credit for the duration of the school year if it is elongated. In other words, if you have high school content over half of the year and college content condensed into a half of the year, it could essentially be a 1.5 credit course. So more to come on that. But if that's something that strikes you as unfamiliar, that you're not doing for college and the high school with Fidelity, and I'll put out there, if you're not doing it for CTE dual credit, this is something that has been in statute for a really, really long time. Last point I'll make on it is that this would apply to any student in that class. We should not be splitting hairs between the student who is taking college credit and the student who is only taking a college in the high school course for high school credit. It is a college level class delivered in partnership with a college. So that seems to be a real sticking point for folks who have been giving differential credit depending on the student's enrollment status. That's a big equity issue, especially when you were paying for college in the high school in the past. I know it's not the case anymore, but for CTE dual credit, for instance, there's still some economic barriers in some cases. So we shouldn't be essentially crediting the same students sitting in the same classroom differently because they are or are not enrolled for college credit. So again, more to come on that. And I'll drop the links into the chat and come to my office hours or hit me via email if that is confusing to you in any way. I've been having lots of conversations about it.
So
Thanks,
that
Tim.
would be great to go on the listserv because, like, honestly, that to me is like, oh, that's news sort of thing. So it'd be great to have something directly from you guys that then we can communicate out to our high school partners as well. Because yeah, that absolutely is not necessarily how everybody is
Right.
running
And I'm attempting
crediting.
to update the CEDARs and the transcription guidance to be consistent. We still have some things to iron out in our understanding with our own internal folks, but I couldn't let this opportunity pass without elevating it as something that is on the horizon.
Yeah.
You don't have to like freak out and adjust things at this second because I said so. Let's let the guidance come out, but be prepared to make adjustments if and when it does. Again, we just need to iron out some of the wrinkles with the transcription side of the house.
Perfect. Seeing what time we're at, I just want to make sure that we get, we finish on time because your time is valuable and important, and we want to respect that. I think it was Scott had his hand up. I don't know, Scott, if you still have a question.
I think Tim was getting to it. Thank you. Yeah. I would just say that that is not the guidance we got from CTE at OSPI around the CTE dual credit. So it would be just great if everybody was on the same page because we went down that path and they told us no.
Yeah.
So there seems to be I'm hearing two different things with this. So that guidance will be important.
Yeah, I threw CTE in the mix because again, some things to iron out, but the distinction between CTE being college rigor and college in the high school being college rigor, like we're trying to get to a place of parity, right? Where if it's dual credit and if it's aligned with the college and approved by the college, we shouldn't be treating these things differently. So thank you for saying that, Scott. Don't take my word as gospel yet on it or make any radical changes. We still have some internal vetting to do. But I had to say it before the opportunity passed.
That sounds good, Tim. We'll keep an eye out, an ear out for that official commentary on that. And so if there's any other questions, feel free to reach out to Tim or anybody else that you're going to see on this next slide. We so appreciate you taking the time to join us today, and a very big thank you to our guest speakers for sharing their time and expertise. We've covered a lot, and we hope you're leaving with some new ideas, useful tools, or even just a spark of inspiration for your own work in college and high school. We appreciate everything that you do. And if you have any lingering questions or thoughts, feel free to reach out to Tim, someone on this slide, and we'd love to keep the conversation going. So a little bit more housekeeping. We'll be sending out the we'll be following up with the presentation slide deck and then the recording and all of those resources that were put into the chat earlier. Until then, thank you so much for the work that you're doing to support students, and we hope to see you again in our next session on June 4th at 11 a.m. So take care, everybody, and have a great day.